50 insane facts about the U.S. Marine Corps. Let's see about that. Let's go.
Number 50, what do they do? Just like we did in our other shows, we have to give you some basics before we get into facts you probably don't already know. Unlike the regular Navy, the Marines spend much of their time on land, though they might capture naval bases or defend them. As you'll find out, they are kind of military multitaskers, and many times they have been the main force in land battles. So really, the name Marines can be a bit misleading.
Nowadays, nobody does what their original mission set was. Look at the SEALs, Marine Corps, so that's kind of a moot point.
49, let the Marines explain. Here's the Marines' own mission statement. We are forward deployed to respond swiftly and aggressively in times of crisis. We are soldiers of the sea, providing forces and detachments to naval ships and shore operations. We are global leaders, developing expeditionary doctrine and innovations that set the example, and leading other countries' forces and agencies in multinational military operations. These unique capabilities make us first to fight and our nation's first line of defense.
Now, the Marines are on ships all around the world, so they are forward deployed. I'll give this guy that. The next thing is the president's got some latitude to use the Marine Corps. It used to be somewhat of a unique thing for the Marine Corps. Now things have changed radically, so the president can send troops pretty much anywhere. You've seen that in the last 3 or 4 decades at least.
8. What qualifications do you need to join? You must be American, mentally stable, you need a high school diploma or a GED, 90% of Marines have a high school diploma, some have GEDs, and a very small percentage have neither. One military site says there are 35 career fields in the Marines, so you'll be chosen to do what you are good at. Number 47.
I think he's wrong there. You guys put that in the comments. I worked with some guys that were green card holders, a Russian, an Australian, and a Mexican. So not all American citizens. And there was nobody, maybe a few guys with GEDs, but everybody had at least a GED. There was nobody without a high school education.
What else? You must be at least 17, but if you are at that age, you'll need your parents' permission to join. You can be as old as 28, according to Stars and Stripes. It depends on what you can offer or what you want to do. Number 46. How fit do you have to be? We went to the actual Marines website to see what you have to do. We can't go through it all, but basically you must be decent at pull-ups, push-ups, and crunches. You then have to run a 3-mile run in 28 minutes or less. That's not really hard for most people who jog a bit. You then have a series of combat fitness tests. All these are scored, and for female Marines, there are different limits for the tests.
Now, those are the bare bones minimum, 28 minutes. Remember, in the Marine Corps, part of the way you get promoted as a young guy is your PFT. So PFT, reviews, rifle range. So that's not going to cut it. Now, obviously, for females, totally different deal. You guys can put that discussion in the comments.
Bootcamp Hard, like in the movies. Are you eyeballing me, son? Is Bootcamp hard? The short answer is yes. Military.com writes, Marine Bootcamp is extremely challenging, both physically and mentally, considered to be tougher than the basic training programs of any of the other military services. There are 3 phases lasting 70 days, and yes, your drill instructor is usually tough on you. One of the last phases is to deprive you of sleep and not feed you much while you go on a grueling march. It's called the Crucible. After boot camp, you'll be sent for more training at your respective school. Number 44? Nah, not for me. Between 11 and 14% of people don't get through boot camp. Number 43?
I don't know where they get that fact. I guess it varies. You guys put that in the comments that we're jarheads. In my platoon, we started with around 85 guys. We ended up with around 53, as I recall. There was a pretty big attrition rate.
And for some people, it really wasn't for them. In 2018, a Marine dropped dead from a heart attack in San Diego. Number 2, killing your DI. We can't find any stories of Marines killing their drill instructors, but in 2008, 4 Marines murdered a United States Marine Corps Sergeant, John Powell Peterzak. It had nothing to do with bad feelings though. This was not a full metal jacket scenario, just bad people that did bad things. Number 41, the first raid. Let's get lighter and more historical. The first ever raid by the Marines came just after they were founded when they stole a bunch of weapons from the Brits and the Bahamas. Number 40, famous Marines who don't look the part. Way too many famous people to mention, so we'll give you a few names that surprised us. Jim Beaver, the guy that wrote the show Deadwood. Drew Carey, comedian and TV star who looks like he might have struggled with the pull-ups if he wasn't much slimmer in those days. The Everly Brothers, old school musicians. Carlo Mastrotaro, a mafia boss. Tom
How is
Monaghan,
that?
the man that gave America Domino's Pizza. Charles Nigg, rapist and killer of 25 people currently
Lovely.
residing on death row in San Quentin. William Clark Styron Jr., one of America's most celebrated novelists. You might not be surprised that the list is full of boxers and other athletes, as well as lots of politicians. Number 39, heartburn. Marines must finish eating their meal the second their drill instructor finishes his meal, which is why some people say Marines eat really fast. Number 38,
Now that's true. You guys that were in, chime in on this one. I don't remember ever getting to finish a meal. I was a guide and then a squad leader. We got kicked out of the chow hall by our DIs for looking around. You know, somebody'd screw up. So I don't remember a full meal ever.
Tavern. Now, some people dispute that this even happened this way, but as the story goes, the way the Marines got started was when two captains, Robert Mullen and Samuel Nicholas, invited a bunch of decent men for a beer at a place called the Tun Tavern. The National Museum of Marine Corps in Virginia has a restaurant called the Tun Tavern. 37. A few good men. You've heard that phrase, and it comes from an ad asking for Marines to sign up to sail. The ad goes like this: the continental ship Providence, now lying at Boston, is bound on a short cruise immediately. A few good men are wanted to make up her complement. That was way back in 1779. 36.
Now that's actually interesting. Beyond the crappy video, seems like it's got some good facts. That's why I'm doing it. We'll see.
Tough dogs. While the British Bulldog has been used to symbolize the stubbornness and hard temperament of Winston Churchill, as well as being painted in the past on tough guys' arms, the Marines actually use it as its mascot. Number 34, Toy Heroes. Not many people know that Toys for Tots was started by the Marine Reserves. They have collected over 500 million toys since they started in 1947. Jarhead. The term jarhead was given to Marines during World War II. Some say it was because of their high and tight haircut, but others say it was more about how the neck of their uniforms was high, and so it made their heads look like jars. Most people on forums discussing this say it was the hair, not the clothes. Number
Well, I can tell you, I don't know how it started, but the point was the high and tight. I don't know about the dress blues comment.
31, leatherneck. Another name for a Marine is leatherneck. This originated in the 19th century when a Marine's uniform consisted of a very hard and high leather neck. Why? So a bayonet couldn't penetrate a Marine's neck. Number 30, devils. The Germans gave the name of Teufelhunden to the US Marines in the First World War. The Marines were sent to save Paris from invading Germans and did a tremendous job. That German phrase above translates to devil dogs. Number 29, the big man. The first ever officer of the Marines, then called the Continental Marines, was called Major Samuel Nicholas. He was the guy that was responsible for that Tun Tavern event, but it's thought he went around lots of taverns looking for able men to fight. His birthday, November 10th, is now the Marine Corps birthday.
Now, the Marine Corps was very good about teaching young recruits, as dumb as they come or as smart as they come, Marine Corps history. You jarheads out there, devil dogs, tell me what you thought about that. I think some guys learned more about history in boot camp than they knew coming in.
28, honor and ethics. If you read the manual for becoming a Marine, a big part of the training is about teaching men to be honorable soldiers. This is why they have the motto Semper Fidelis, which is Latin for always faithful. Faithful not only to the Marines, but to the country and to the values they have been taught. Number 27, PTSD. That's not always easy when you have PTSD. It's said around 8% of Americans will get PTSD at some point in their lives, but as for people in the military, that goes up to 11 to 30%. Number 26, not enough help. One ex-Marine writes, "In the military, young people are indoctrinated into a warrior culture. When they're sent to boot camp and then to war, they are required to do extreme things in order to survive. Some don't cope well. The U.S. National Institute of Health writes that veterans don't get enough help, and many turn to drink, drugs, and worse."
I think all veterans suffer with that problem. What do you guys think? Put that in the comments.
Our findings suggest that mental health disparities are often a leading factor to the high suicide rates among veterans who experience depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. You've all seen the movies. Perhaps that phrase Semper Fidelis should work both ways, not just when the government wants men to fight, but when it has to take responsibility for the consequences of war.
That's one good point this jackass said, that we need to take care of these veterans that get out. If you break it, you buy it. And I don't think the society as a whole thinks about the cost of these things or they care. But I know the VA tries hard. We'll give them that.
25. Marines have it tough. Suicides among all veterans is about double that of American civilians. One report, although from 2010, said more Marines kill themselves than any other branch of the military. Not by much though, the Army was second and the Navy was much lower than both. Number 24. The Marines have their own hymn. This is the first verse. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean, we are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. Number 23. What does it mean? The halls of Montezuma refers to the Battle of Chapultepec in 1847. The Marines took Chapultepec Castle in Mexico City, and then took the city in the Mexican-American War. The second line refers to the Barbary War in the early 1800s, when the United States and Sweden went up against some North African states. You can actually learn a lot just from analyzing the full song.
That's very interesting. You wouldn't think that'd be the Marines' hymn. You know, you sing it. I learned about it in the Marine Corps. Didn't learn about it in history class in high school. But those facts are interesting. Who'd guess the Swedes and the Marines were fighting off the coast of Africa? Who knew?
2. Normandy invasion. One of the things some people find strange is that it was the American army who made up most of the Normandy invasion and not the Marines. Storming the land from the sea, isn't that what the Marines are trained to do? The reason was simply about numbers. The Army had 89 divisions in the war, and the Marines had just 6. The Marines were scattered around the world, especially the Pacific, and the Army had enough troops for the invasion. Number 21. Marines in other worlds. It's often Marines that are depicted fighting on other planets. They ended up in the film Aliens, in the movie Avatar as the Jarhead clan, and also in the video game Doom. Number 20. How to save your friends. A Marine called Jason Lee Dunham was posthumously given the Medal of Honor for an act of valor. The Marine serving in Iraq with the 3rd Battalion 7th Marines threw himself on a grenade and tried to cover it with his helmet. It exploded and he was very seriously hurt. His comrades, however, were not seriously hurt. Dunham was evacuated, but his injuries were grave and his life support was turned off in 2004. During the posthumous presentation of the Medal of Honor, the first few lines read, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." Number 9.
Now, do you guys think people who do those kind of heroic acts are born or made? Is it genetic or environment? Put that one in the comments.
18. Getting there fast. In 2002, the U.S. Air Force and the Marines began a project called Small Unit Space Transport and Insertion, the acronym being SUSTAIN. The object was to be able to deploy Marines anywhere on the planet within just 2 hours or less. Suborbital spacecraft would be used to make this happen. "We've batted ideas back and forth," said one of the main people involved regarding the challenge. "We can't find how the program has progressed recently." Number 18. Bambi was a Marine. The kid that did the voice for the cute deer Bambi, an animated movie made back in 1942, became a Marine. His name is Donald Donnie Roan Dunnigan. He's 83 today, but in his younger days, post-Bambi, he served in the Marines and was awarded a Bronze Star and 3 Purple Hearts. That's a tough little deer. Number 17. No Girl Left Behind. In the book Goodnight Saigon by Charles Henderson, it's written that during the evacuation of Saigon by American troops in 1975, one Marine called Gregory Hargis drove a truck full of prostitutes to an airstrip and put them on a C-141. He said they were his friends and signed a responsibility form for them. This is some of the dialogue in the book. "Where do we go?" they chimed together. "You go stateside," Hargis called back.
Now I can believe that one. That sounds just like a bunch of Marines I serve with and know to this day. You guys know any leathernecks like that?
16. Rekkles. The Marines had a horse they named Rekkles, but we are not sure how conscious the horse was of its recklessness. During the Korean War, the war horse carried ammunition, wounded soldiers, and more. She made many missions and was injured for her efforts. She was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and became a staff sergeant. Number 15. Hard times. The New York Times reported in 2009 that when times are tough economically in the USA and the Marines have enough recruits, they would change their ads. Rather than tempt folks to join, they would make Marine life look really hard. When numbers fell, expect to see more enticing ads. Number 14.
I don't believe that one. It seems like the Marine Corps' marketing department has always pushed this standard of gallantry, toughness. I think all the services do now. The marketing arm has changed. I mean, look at the Navy. Half their stuff you see now will be about SEALs. I mean, who wants to think about being stuck in a submarine for 6 months underwater? Everybody wants to think they're going to be a SEAL kicking in the door and shooting the bad guy.
Peyote. Again, from the New York Times, there's a report in 1997 that tells us Native Americans were allowed to take peyote, containing the psychedelic drug mescaline, in the Marines in spite of anti-drug policies. It was decided they could on the grounds of their religion, but not on the battlefield, of course. Number 13, feed your head. The Marines are given a reading list. Marines must read history, some biographies, and lots about war. They must also read the U.S. Constitution.
The Marine Corps is good about that. Now, the Commandant's reading list is what he's talking about. And I don't know, it changes a whole lot. I think they add books as it goes. These Commandants have gotten more and more into the reading list. Now, how much of it gets done? I doubt that much.
12. The drill. A Marine was saved by ad hoc brain surgery, partly using a Black & Decker drill. The surgeon was CNN chief medical correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta. In 2007, the doctor wrote in a CNN article, "I remember the day well. It was in April of 2003. A 23-year-old Marine, Jesus Vidana, suddenly fell to the ground, his helmet and head bloodied by a sniper's bullet." Gupta writes that the Marine survived and did well, saying he wouldn't be telling you the story if it hadn't gone that way. Number 11, older than the actual country. The U.S. Marine Corps is actually older than the USA itself, which you should know if you know your history. It was formed one day before the Declaration of Independence.
All right, so when was it formed, you guys? Put that in the comments. What's the Marine Corps birthday, and what year is it formed? And most of you Marines are going to remember from the song you sang in boot camp. Put that one in the comments.
Number 10, talking down the enemy. At the battles for Saipan and Tinian Islands in 1944 during World War II, a U.S. Marine called Guy Louis Gabaldon is said to have convinced 1,300 Japanese soldiers to surrender. How did he do this? After shining shoes on Skid Row and joining a gang, he went to live with a Japanese family when he was 12. He learned the language and their customs. For his efforts, he became known as the Pied Piper of Saipan. Number 9, raising the flag. One of the soldiers from that famous moment in history when soldiers raised the American flag on Mount Suribachi during the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II was actually colorblind. It said he got in the Marines by memorizing what another man had said in the tests. He was killed in action a week after that flag was raised. Number 8.
There's a lot of guys who memorize the lines on the test for the eyesight, the colors. That's a common thing. And you guys ever see that one? They say it's going to be line 7. Here's what it is for the blind guys. Put that one in the comments.
Look smart. Stars and Stripes writes that when Marines are in uniform, they should always be well groomed. But another thing they are told not to do is put their hands in their pockets. Again, if you are in the field and it is cold and you don't have gloves, common sense says put your hands in your pocket. But you better not do it in garrison, said Mary Boyd of the Marine Corps Uniform Board. But what if you have an itch in a certain spot? Stars and Stripes didn't ask that question.
He is right. If you get around other branches of the service, and particularly the Navy, you'll notice their hands in their pockets when it's cold. And by God, you better not do it as a Marine. Get gloves, you're lucky. That's one way they are hard about.
7, and if it rains. Male Marines are not allowed to carry umbrellas. Female Marines can hold umbrellas. Number 6, drinking snake blood. Every year, American Marines visit Thailand and do all kinds of jungle exercises. It's known as Cobra Gold and is a big deal in the Thai media. It culminates with U.S. Marines cutting off a cobra's head and drinking its blood. Number 5.
Now why? Well, it's jungle survival training, right? It's not just for the hell of it. So PETA will get all up in arms every year about it. But the point is, if you're stuck in the jungle with nothing to drink except water full of protozoas, you drink the snake blood. I tell you what, the modern media can really screw something up.
5. The hidden pin. Some Marines have a pin with their next rank they could be promoted to somewhere on their uniform, but they often keep that pin covered. Number 4.
Never did that one.
During the Marine Corps birthday, every year, there is a cake. The first piece is given to the guest of honor, the second to the oldest Marine at the party, and the third to the youngest Marine. We guess then it's a free-for-all.
That is true. When you get there, you'll see the guest of honor, typically some crusty old jarhead. The young guy looks like he's a baby face, and then the oldest Marine. So those are always fun times to watch that because there's such a disparity. And you'll look at guys in the middle and think, God, they look old.
3. The band. The Marines have had a band since 1798, which has been performing for American presidents at their inauguration since Thomas Jefferson in 1801. It's called the President's Own. Number 2, loss of life. While Marines died in small numbers in the 18th and 19th centuries, it wasn't until World War I's Battle of Belleau Wood that huge numbers died in one battle. It's said around 5,000 Marines died. And finally, number 1, carrying a lot of money around. Star-Spangled Flags wrote in 2017 that these days, each Marine carries about $14,000 worth of gear and equipment, and that's not even including night vision goggles. The Huffington Post writes that top-of-the-range goggles can cost as much as $20,000. They can be much cheaper, but we guess the Marines have the good stuff. It's also said that in the early 2000s, Marines would carry just $2,500 worth of gear. So,
I could believe that because the government can't buy anything cheap. When I was in the Marine Corps, there was no way in hell it was 14,000. He's not even including nods in that number. It's the government. I could see them overspending. New to the channel, thanks for stopping by. For my current subscribers, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching.